Good morning, boys and girls. I hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday morning. Today's lesson is Module 14, Lesson 2, Partition Shapes into Equal Areas. And you can find that on page 389. Today's I Can objective reads, I can divide shapes into parts with equal areas and write each equal part as a fraction. We're building on what we did yesterday, boys and girls, which was to divide shapes into parts with equal areas. Now, if you remember yesterday's lesson, on some of the shapes, the parts that were divided looked a little different, but if they had the same area, then those parts were equal. And today we're going to take it a step further, and we're going to look at those parts and name the fraction for each of those parts. Let's take a look at build understanding. And to help us today, Tyler is back. Tyler, can you say hi?
Hello.
Okay. Number one, how can you divide the rectangle into 6 parts with equal areas? Well, if I know that I want to divide it into parts with equal areas, I know that each part is going to have the same amount of square units. Now, I went ahead and I counted how many columns. And I have 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So that doesn't allow me to break it up into 6 columns, equal columns. So now let's count how many rows there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I still can't break that up into 6 equal rows. Why don't we try this? Let's break it in half with a vertical line. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because 8 is half of 16, okay? And now I know that I want 3 parts on each side. If I have 9 rows, then I would make each part 3 rows. Okay, they look like equal parts, but what can I do to find out if they have an equal area? You're right, I can count how many square units are in each part. But before I do that, what do we know about area that could help us find out how many square units are in each part? Well, yeah, you can multiply. I know that area is how many rows times how many in each row. And for this part, I have 1, 2, 3 rows. And I know that in each row I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 square units. So 3 rows times 8 gives me 24. And I can't forget my square units. So each of those parts should have 24 square units. Let's try one more out and see if we get it. And let's count this time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yep, that's correct. Each of those parts has 24 square units. A, how do you know that the parts are equal in area? Well, you can count the square units. Or multiply to find the area of each. Okay. And B, what fraction of the whole rectangle is each part? Well, I know that my denominator is the total amount of equal parts to make the rectangle, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. And if I'm asking the fraction of the whole rectangle is each part, then I'm talking about just one of those parts. So it would be my unit fraction, 1/6. Now, Tyler, is that the only way to divide that rectangle into 6 parts with equal areas?
No, there are many ways, but the only way to know if it's correct is that there are 24 square units in each 6.
Okay, awesome, good job. So boys and girls, a connection to yesterday. Yesterday we were looking at parts, and sometimes the parts didn't look the same, but their area was the same. So if I went ahead and I counted 24 units, so 6, 12, 18, 24, that would have 24 units. And then I could do one with 3. So even though those two parts don't look the same, they have the same area, 24 square units. Okay, so there's many ways that you can divide that rectangle as long as they each have the same area. Now let's look at number 2. Number 2, divide the circle so that each part is 1/3 of the area of the whole shape. How can you show that each part of your circle is an equal area? Explain. Well, I'm going to start this one off and you let me know what you think.
Okay.
So divide the circle so that each part is 1/3 of the area. Okay, that's simple enough. All right, so each part is 1/3. What do you think?
I don't think that's right. I don't think it's right because these two pieces are smaller than the middle pieces. The middle piece.
Okay, so let me erase. So if the pieces are smaller, then what does that say about the area?
That they're different sizes.
Different areas, different sizes. So let's erase that and try again. Do you have any tips on what I should do?
Maybe you can draw a Y.
A Y. Okay, so let me find my middle point, which is about there. And boys and girls, for this one, you're estimating. We don't have a grid, so we don't have square units. So we're really trying to look to see what we think would be equal parts. So to make 3 equal parts on a circle, a good trick is to find where you think the center is, and then you can make either a Y or an upside down Y. And then you would have equal parts, or as close to equal parts as you can get, okay? And Tyler, what would you do to show that the parts are the same, that have the same area?
I would cut them up and see if they're the same size.
Oh, good. So you would do what we did yesterday. You could cut up these parts, and if you layered them, you would see if they're the same size. Okay, good job. Number 3, Angela and Pedro divide rectangles into 8 equal parts in different ways. Both rectangles are the same size and shape. So I see both my rectangles. I have Angela's rectangle, and she's decided to break up her rectangle into 8 equal columns. And then we have Pedro's rectangle, and he divided his into 8 equal rows. A, do the parts from Angela's rectangle have the same shape as the parts from Pedro's rectangle? Explain. Well, Angela's parts look like this, and Pedro's parts look something like this. So even though they're both rectangles, they have a different shape. So no, they have different shapes. Even though the parts are both rectangles. Okay. B, who divided the rectangle into parts that are greater in area? Angela or Pedro? Explain how you know. So Tyler, I'll let you answer this one. Who do you think divided the rectangle into parts that have a greater area?
I think neither.
Why is that?
Because they're both divided into eighths.
And what does that mean when you're dividing something into eighths?
They have the same size. Since it's the same size rectangle, it's the same size eighth.
Good. So neither, because they both divided their rectangles into eighths. And we know that if you're dividing something into eighths, or if you're using fractions, then each of those parts are the same size. So it might look different, boys and girls, but the area of those parts are the same. Now it's your turn. I want you to try the check understanding and on your own. You're going to pause the video here to complete those problems. And I want you, before you come back to the video, I want you to share your answers for number 2 and number 3 with an adult at home. Welcome back, boys and girls. Let's see how you did. Tyler, you ready to help me out?
Yep.
Okay, let's start with check understanding. Number 1, what fraction of the total area of the circle does each equal part represent? Now we're talking about each part, each equal part. So what fraction would you write for each equal part?
I would write 1/4.
Okay, and if I'm writing 1/4, what's another way to write 1/4 as a fraction?
1/4.
1/4. So my numerator is a 1, and that's represented by the each equal part. And my 4 is my denominator, and that's my 4 total equal parts to make that whole circle. Number 2, Nora and Nick cut felt squares to make 6 equal-sized patches. Nick wants his patches to have a different shape, but the same area as Nora's patches. Draw lines to show how they can cut each of the felt squares. So boys and girls, you should have been able to come up with even more than just 2 different ways to break these squares up into sixths. So Tyler, do you want to draw one way?
Yep.
Okay.
Do I do Nora or Nick?
Whichever you want.
Okay. So Nora can have 1 going down the middle, 1 here, and 1 here.
Okay, good job. So you broke it in 1 line down the middle, you broke it in half that way, and then you made 3 equal rows, as equal as possible, right, for writing on a screen. Okay, so now I'm going to try a different way for Nick. You know what? I'm going to draw a line this way, and then I'm going to break each of my half into 3 equal parts. Okay, so Tyler, do you think that my parts have the same area as your parts?
Yes.
And why is that?
Because they're both 6 on the same size square.
Good. We're using the same size square and we're breaking them into sixths, so 6 equal parts. Awesome. And even though they look different, each part does have the same area. And boys and girls, just in case you did a lot of other ways, you could have done 1 line going this way and then 2 this way. Okay, you could have done vertical lines, a lot of different ways that you could have broken that up, boys and girls. Okay. Number 3, Glenn says he can divide the six-sided shape into 3 parts with equal areas. Emily says she can divide the shape into 6 parts with equal areas. Whose statement is correct? Draw to explain. So boys and girls, were you able to draw to separate the shapes into 3 equal parts and into 6 equal parts? If you were, then you would have seen that they were both correct. Okay, so let's start with Glenn's. I know that this is my middle point, okay, and this is a hexagon, so it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. Now, if he's breaking it apart into 3 equal parts, then each part is going to include 2 sides. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line here, and I'm going to include side 1 and side 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to include 2 more sides for the next part. And then my third part has 2 sides also. So that hexagon is now broken up into 3 equal parts, and those parts have the same area. And now let's look at Emily's. She's breaking it up into 6 equal parts. Well, it's still a hexagon and it's the same size, so I know that it has 6 sides. I'm going to go ahead and mark my midpoint, and this time, instead of giving each part 2 sides, I'm going to give each part 1 side because I want 6 parts. So 1, 2. Can you picture what I'm filling this up with? What shape am I making? Okay, so I have made 6 equal parts. Boys and girls, if you know our pattern blocks that we use in school, you know our yellow hexagons. Imagine taking some the blue rhombus and putting 3 of them on top. And then imagine taking another yellow hexagon and filling them up with those green triangles. So 6 green triangles or 3 blue rhombi to cover it. So 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, and 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, 1/6, and 1/6. Okay, so I agree with both of them because they were able to divide their shapes into their respective equal parts. Number 4, divide the shape into 6 equal parts. How do you know that you divided your shape into 6 equal parts? Well, I counted before I started this problem. I know that there are 6 rows, so I can actually just go ahead, and divide my shape into 6 equal rows, okay? And I would know that it has equal parts by counting how many square units there are. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 square units in each part. Number 5, shade 1/4 of the shape on the left. So if I go ahead and I shade 1/4, I'm going to shade 1 part out of the 4. Okay. Number 6, is there another way to divide the shape into 4 equal parts? Well, the shape is a square, and I know there's a lot of ways to divide a square, but I'm going to go ahead and just look at it a little sideways and go ahead and divide it that way. Okay. So yes, there are. I could also divide it this way, as long as my parts are equal. If yes, draw lines on the shape on the right to show a way. Shade the shape to show 1/4. So that would be 1/4. And this would also be 1/4. Sorry, my lines aren't perfectly straight. So 3 different ways to break up that square into 4 equal parts. And even though the parts look different, their area is going to measure the same. So the area is the same. So boys and girls, in today's lesson, we looked at shapes again, and we looked at separating them into equal parts. And sometimes those parts don't look exactly the same, but as long as their area is the same, then the amount of space inside is. When that happens, we're using fractions to describe those parts. And if we're talking about a unit fraction, we're talking about one of those parts that it takes to make up the whole fraction. We're going to complete a Nearpod activity today. You'll see on your screen the English code is MYANQ. Para os meninos que só falam português, que fazem os deveres em português, o código é DIBQV. Y para los niños que solamente hacen los trabajos en español, el código es YJKML. Okay? Please take your time completing that activity. Stay safe, healthy, helpful, and calm. Boys and girls, if you need anything, please email me or contact me on Class Dojo. I would love to hear from you. I would love to say hi. I miss you all. Okay?
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thanks, boys and girls. See you tomorrow.